Sonic, the heart of your system.
Hi and welcome to a new video. As you can see, we're in my living room and we're taking a closer look at my HTPC, which is sitting nicely inside my IKEA shelf. And this one is from 2014. It's AMD kabini based, which is AM1. It's far from any enthusiast platform, but back then was extremely cheap and also extremely efficient. I think I paid about €40 for the motherboard, €40 for the CPU, added one memory stick, and I think the total thing was just about €100 total. So yeah, totally worth it. But now in 2019, yeah, there's just no performance anymore. If I want to run YouTube 4K videos, or even if it's 1080p and I'm running 50 or 60 FPS, this thing is really on the limit. That's why I have to update this. I have a RYZEN 3 3200G here, which is pretty much the same as a 2200G as far as I know. But yeah, if I'm already buying a new CPU, why would I buy the 2200G? That's why I picked the 3200G, so we will do an upgrade to my AM1 kabini system. And before we get to that, we will just take a look at the performance of my kabini system. As you can see, I'm still running Windows 8 on this system, which is something I definitely will change for the future. We will upgrade to Windows 10. You can see in CPU-Z the 5350 AMD Athlon with 25 watt TDP, 28 nanometer technology. This belongs to the Jaguar family, and yeah, right click shows that the CPU is running 4 cores at just above 2 GHz. Mainboard is an ASUS AM1IA, and if you take a look at the memory, you can see I'm only using a single stick with 4 GB DDR3 even, and this is only running at 666, so 1333 MHz on the memory. We will just perform a single bench R15 run. I think I never tried this before on this CPU. Not entirely sure how long it will take, but I think it will really take a little bit. This is really not the fastest CPU. It's an APU, so the graphics unit is included. As you can see, it's an AMD Radeon HD 8400. Yeah, this will certainly take a bit. Sorry, I just had a pizza break because this really took forever. You can see R15 single is only 44 points. Multi is 149 points. Considering that a latest RYZEN 3000 has a single bench score of about 210. Like one RYZEN 3600 core is faster than all of those 4 combines. This shows why this CPU really needs to be replaced. Yeah, let's open this thing. Place the PC on my desk for now. I cannot really tell you what kind of case this is. I just remember that I pretty much bought the cheapest case with this kind of form factor or size I could find back then, because I just wanted it to match my IKEA shelf. And yeah, I think it was pretty cheap, like €30, but not entirely sure, and really cannot remember the brand. It's very easy to open though, just have to remove 4 screws on top and then can remove the top plate. A quick disclaimer before we're opening this case. I just assembled this case or the system 5 years ago, and I never opened it afterwards again. I also never cleaned it afterwards again, which I probably should have done, but yeah. Oops. Yeah, I think I have to get the vacuum and remove some of this dust, but maybe remove the PSU first. Removing the DIMMs first. Those are Mushkin Silverline DIMMs. Mushkin was a memory brand that was really popular in like DDR2 times. kind of left the market. I think with DDR3 there are some sticks still available. I think they even had an office in Germany. I'm not even sure if they were from Germany, but yeah, Mushkin is not really present anymore, but back then they were really cheap, and that's why I used them in this rig. Now we will just remove the fan, just out of curiosity, because I never cleaned it and I think it will look absolutely terrible underneath. Honestly, this is embarrassing. I really don't like to show this, but I want to show you the truth. This is how it looks like if you don't clean your rig for like 5 years. And I'm pretty sure that the cooling did not benefit from this. I always tell people to remove dust filters and clean your system regularly. That's also what I do on my personal rig, like the gaming rig. I really clean it like every 3 months at least to make sure the cooling is sufficient and everything. But on this, yeah, I'm not proud of it, but this is how it looks like if you're not cleaning your rig. So clean your rigs. I told you in the beginning of the video that I'm going to use the Ryzen 3 3200G, which is pretty much the same as, at least as far as I know, as the 2200G, the previous CPU, and the previous one was also not soldered, not unlike the 3600, 3700X, all of those are soldered, and this one I think should use conventional TIM.
Wrong.
That is absolutely
wrong.
Proved over and over again.
Wrong.
We actually add.
We'll use Diamate in combination with this additional AMD tool, which I developed like a year ago, I think it was. It's nothing else than just a small piece of plastic and a longer screw. Putting the CPU inside the Diamate, but with the pins facing upwards. So we're pushing against the PCB, not like with the Intel CPUs where we're pushing against the IHS. Put this small plastic piece in here, slider from the back, carefully insert the screw, because if you're not careful you can theoretically bend some pins. This is how it looks like, and then it's just the usual process with force. Okay, after I think pushing the IHS over the CPU, I think like 6, 7, 8 times, I thought this really feels like it's soldered. And then I used Google, which I should have done in advance. And then turns out that somebody else deleted the CPU already in April before Ryzen 3000 came out, and I just missed this news. I didn't read it. That's how you have to learn the hard way. I think we still have to delete it right now because I already moved it so many times over the heat spreader or the heat spreader over the PCB. There is no way back. Opened the CPU and I thought, hey, this worked and maybe I can use this method in future for Ryzen 3000 to delete soldered CPUs. Unfortunately, you can see there is a small cap up here and you can see, yeah, this one is just moving around. This cap was original on this side. You can see all the other caps are protected with some kind of glue above it, and the row of caps on the side here was not protected, so yeah, you can see this one is also loose. I can kind of forget about that one as well. This one is also damaged. That one looks fine. So I think there are like 4 caps missing, but this happened to me in the past as well with different CPUs, and they were all working afterwards after I removed those caps. Yeah, I hope the CPU still works. We'll see. Let's get to the assembly. Last night before I went to bed, I quickly performed a test on a 3200G, simply put it in an X570 board, checked if it was booting into Windows, if the temperatures were fine, everything looked good, so we can be sure that the CPU is still working, even though there are some caps missing. But as I said before, on those CPUs, if some caps are missing, happened to me before, they always worked. So that's not really an issue. I will use this ASRock B450 Fatality Gaming AC ITX motherboard, which is a board I purchased myself. Actually, all the components on the table are purchased by myself. Nothing in here is sponsored. That's kind of important to me because this is really the component selection I'm doing personally. Yeah, also under the aspect that I'm looking for the best like price-performance ratio. I was looking for an ITX board that offers built-in Wi-Fi. That was kind of important to me. Also HDMI and DisplayPort was important, and this board offered both. While it was fairly cheap, I think I spent about 85 euro for this board, new and originally packed on eBay. So I think that was a quite good deal. As I said before, we will use the 3200G on there. CPU is tested and good. CPU will be cooled by this Rajintech cooler. I didn't really look for something fancy or even like a Noctua cooler. I think it's not necessary for this operation. I will use this on pretty much the minimum RPM if possible. And if possible, I will also undervolt the CPU to make sure that the power consumption is as low as possible, because this rig will really run 24/7. Like the previous one was also running 24/7 pretty much for 5 years. And if you're just using this for like YouTube and Netflix, I don't think it really matters if the CPU is running at like 50 degree or 60 degree, as long as it's silent and you don't hear anything. That's why I'm going to lock the RPM at the lowest possible level. Then I have 2 sticks of 8GB Core 7 LPX. Nothing with RGB, because you're not going to see it anyway in this rig. It's with 2666 MHz speed. Wouldn't really buy or recommend anything below that, because that's typically not worth the money. But for like an HTPC, you don't need for like 3600 or something. It doesn't really make much sense. That's why 2666 is probably the best price spot for an HTPC. All right, let's get to it. I'm now going to do something you really should not do at home. Like really don't repeat this. I'm just going to reuse my Be Quiet PSU. Yeah, it still works, so I don't see why I should throw it away or replace it. For now I only need 24 pin and the 8-pin EPS cable. Everything else I don't need, like SATA and PCI Express and Molex and all of those I don't need, and this is not a modular PSU. That's why I will open the PSU and remove the cables, unsolder the cables which I don't need, and there's really a high risk if you're doing that, because there are capacitors inside. They're charged with 230 volt. If you touch those or some of those pins, in theory you can kill yourself. So really don't open PSUs if you're not trained for this. I am, so I can do that, but really don't repeat it at home. First try to solder it with my small soldering iron. Well, small, but it's still 60 watt I think. But this one is 150 watt, the same I use for the e-power modules, which is required because the PCB is thick and the copper layer as well, and there's a ton of tin on there. That's why we'll use this soldering iron. PSU only has the EPS and 24-pin connector left. That's all we need. Now we're going to add those two connectors, then put in the PSU. You can see cable management is much better than before. I hid all the cables underneath the mainboard itself. Use a bit of cable ties on the side to make it nice and clean. Now add the PSU and we're done. Just finished setting up the system. You can see I already performed Cinebench R15 runs with single and multi 464 points and single 147 points. That's pretty much triple the performance than what I had with the AMD Kabini CPU, and for me that was definitely worth the upgrade, spending about, I think, overall 250 euro for this HTPC. I think that's totally worth it. Obviously I could keep the old case, the old PSU, so I could save some costs on that. I also thought about undervolting this CPU, but then if you just take a look at power consumption right now in idle, it's about 2 to 3 watt for the CPU cores, and then we have about 9 watt for the SoC. So total something between 10 and 12 watt seems to be in line from what I can measure from the socket. So typical power consumption of this system is about 15-16 watt in idle, which I think is fine for an HTPC. And yeah, if I need the power, it's there. The CPU can consume, as you can see here, up to 77 watt, which still is fine considering what kind of performance you can get out of this chip. And using the RYZEN cooler at 20% fan speed, and always locked at 20% fan speed, even if the CPU is getting hot, I limit it to maximum 20% fan speed, because you just don't want to sit on your couch, enjoy a movie, and then suddenly the fan is spinning up. Really annoying. That's why it's limited, but you can see Cinebench max temperature, if you load all 4 cores 100%, 75.8 degrees Celsius. That's still totally fine, considering that in all daily applications, watching YouTube videos, Netflix and all of that, I will never encounter this load. That's why I'm pretty much happy with this system. And yeah, by the way, if you were missing Coke Zero in my video, I just tried Coke Clear and I'm not really a fan. Seems to be something like Coke Zero with 0 calories and no, I don't know, no color in it, but it really doesn't taste nice. Yeah, I don't agree. Coke Zero for the win, Coke Clear, no. Alright, so thanks for joining in this video and see you next time.